Okay, good evening. I think we should start. It's Friday evening. I guess it's Friday night. It's the end of the day, end of the week, end of the high-level political forum first week. So I think we're very lucky to have you. Thank you very much for dropping by. But the event will be on web TV and it will be recorded. So hopefully we can benefit from the discussions that we will have today in a more powerful way. My name is Rami Ahmed. I am the Special Envoy on SDGs and Senior Advisor to the President of IDB. And welcome to this event on shifting from financing to empowerment, potential of Islamic finance as an enabler in eradicating poverty. This event is sponsored and organized by the Islamic Solidarity Fund for Development, ISFD. It's the poverty alleviation arm of the Islamic Development Bank Group. And it's a special fund within the IDB group that you will know a little bit about in a couple of minutes. Let me, before we start, just say that we, as a financial institution, we're a bank, Islamic Development Bank. So, but we happen to believe that throwing money at the poor will not solve their problems. And as a matter of fact, you might just even make things worse by making them indebted poor. And if you think about it, there is a more fundamental difference and differentiation between groups of people in this universe. It's not about poor and rich. Yes, there are poor and there are rich. But we happen to believe that there are the weak and the empowered. Just picture 7 billion people in this universe. 3 to 4 billion people are disadvantaged. Yes, maybe they will not fall under the definition of $1 a day or $1.25 or $1.90 a day, but they don't have access to markets. They don't have the empowerment, the access to institutions, to legal institutions, legal rights. Yes, they don't have access to finance, that's part of it, but more than this, maybe they don't have access to technology, they don't have access to skills, to training, to high return opportunity markets. On the other hand, you have about 2 to 3 billion people, depending on whose definition you are using. They have the access to the formal institutions, to the formal markets, to the training, to the capacity building, to all kinds of empowering tools that will make them productive in life. We continue to talk about poverty as people who will get some money and hopefully they will be lifted out of poverty. They get to $2 a day or $3 a day, and then we, MDBs and others, will start celebrating how many people we have left out of poverty. We still celebrate the fact that in 20 years, the number of the poor has been reduced from 2 billion in 1990 to almost 800 million people in 2012. True, but it's because of two countries mainly, because of China and India. China got about 800 million people out of poverty. India got about 250 out of poverty. The absolute number of poor, even if we use the same definition, has risen in sub-Sahara Africa in the same period from 250 million to 389 million. We still have at least 44 LDCs who are suffering from poverty. So the notion of celebrating lifting people out of poverty because of some definition may be something that we really need to have a look at. So my point and the point of this seminar, and I hope we get something with the distinguished panelists that we have, is really we need to get out of the notion of just giving money to the poor. We need a paradigm shift from financing to empowerment. And we need to think of tools on how to do this, and whether really we're looking at the poor as people who are credit consumers. We need to think of them as perhaps business partners so they can lift themselves out of poverty. And since we are talking about SDGs, It's not SDG 1 only. If you can lift people up to above $2 a day or something, maybe yes, you feel good about SDG 1. But you still have to grapple with SDG 2 and SDG 3 and SDG 4 and SDG 5. But if you empower the poor, they're gonna have to, they know how to deal with their health needs and education needs instead of just simply grappling with the notion of poor. When they are empowered, they will know how to address SDG 3, health. They will know how to address SDG 4, education. The women who are empowered, they will be in a better position to tackle the SDG 5, and so on. So to address this question of how do we empower the poor, we have a distinguished panel with us. We have Dr. Amjad Saqib from Pakistan. We have Dr. Tariq Shima from the US. We have Dr. Nabil Ghalib from Tunisia. We have Ms. Rula Majdalani from, at least we have the UN people with us. So it's from ESQA. And we,
gender, not balanced, but
not balanced, but that's smart. That's very smart. And we have Mr. Khmayis Al-Kazzah on behalf of Dr. Walid Luhaib, who was not able to join us today, the Director General of ISFD. So before we get to the discussion and listening to the panelists, and since ISFD has sponsored this event, we'll start with some welcoming remarks from Mr. Khamis Al-Kazzah, please.
Thank you very much, Rami. I'm not going to abuse from your time because of sponsoring this event, so I will go directly to the point. So first of all, on behalf of the Islamic Solidarity Fund for Development, on behalf of the Islamic Development Bank, I would like to welcome all of you here today in ISFD event. We are going to talk about economic empowerment. We are talking about an innovation that we would like to introduce in our approach of fighting poverty. This is why we are here today. We believe that this is the right approach that institutions like ISFD, multilateral, should adopt in the future so they can fight poverty, we can together reduce and get good impact on using economic empowerment as a new concept of investing with the poor and investing in the poor. So this is why we are here today, and this is why ISFD is sponsoring this seminar. We would like to make a shift from financing to empowerment. We would like to make a change, and we would like to make a paradigm shift in our approach of looking at this matter. So if you allow me, Rami, I will just show a very short video.
How short?
3 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so just to save you from speaking about ISFD and to have a board speech. So I think you will see some stories also on what ISFD has done during the last 6 to 7 years, I would say. Sister Aisha is with me here today. She's from the Islamic Solidarity Fund also. And we will just share this with you. Thank you.
As humankind faces many challenges, the United Nations introduced Sustainable Development Goals. Poverty is most often measured in monetary terms, captured by levels of income or consumption per capita or per household. By enabling the Sustainable Development Goals approach, Islamic Development Bank Group, IDB, announced the Islamic Solidarity Fund for Development, ISFD, a poverty alleviation arm in the year 2005. ISFD was officially launched in the year 2007 and commenced its operations in the year 2008. ISFD was set up with an initial target capital of $10 billion from the VAC Endowment Fund. ISFD had its objectives, focusing on human development, especially on health and education, providing microfinance to support the poor, creating employment opportunities, empowering women in socio-economic development, providing the poor and the vulnerable with social safety nets. To fulfill its objectives, ISFD has categorized 5 flagship programs. Vocational Literacy Program, VOLIP, Microfinance Support Program, MFSP, Sustainable Villages Program, SVP, Save the Mothers Program, SMP, Renewable Energy Program, REP, Vocational Literacy Program, to equip the poor with relevant functional skills in literacy competencies. $500 million has been allotted for this program. Microfinance Support Program, to promote Sharia-compatible microfinance products and services. Sustainable Villages Program, to develop remote and impoverished communities. Save the Mothers Program, to create awareness campaigns to prevent and mitigate fistula incidents. Renewable Energy Program, access to reliable, affordable and sustainable sources of solar energy for the poor. Through ISFD's flagship program, IDB member countries have benefited greatly in reducing the poverty and bringing sustainable growth to the people. ISFD's work in the Asian region.
Biasanya songketnya ada 2, sekarang bikin lagi ada 3 gitu kan. Udah bisa orang yang nenun. Itu manfaatnya itu bisa itu udah mencukupi untuk keluarga begitu kan, menunjang itu keperluan keluarga, bisa sekolah anak.
ISFD's work in the Middle Eastern region.
ولا شيء وتيسرت الامور. 3000 دينار اعطوني اول شيء 1500 دينار، وال 1500 دينار بس ايش يشوف المشروع، يشوف العده موجود ولا لا، والحمد لله الامور ميسره يعني.
ISFD's work in the African region.
The good thing is there's no interest, no immediate repayments. You present the project and then share the profits it will generate.
As a way forward for the implementation of the program, resource mobilization campaigns are conducted for co-financing and partnering with governments and other stakeholders. With the support of strategic partnerships, ISFD has conducted various programs to create an egalitarian society. Let's come together to uplift the people from poverty and bring sustainable livelihoods through your support. Islamic Solidarity Fund for Development, Poverty Alleviation Arm for Islamic Development Bank Group.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and sorry about this technical, it was okay? Yes. Anyway, you saw the name of Dr. Aisha. She's with us here. If you still have any questions, so you can catch her right after the event. Okay, well, thank you, Khmayes, and let us just get into it. Before we get to the gurus on my left, I want the UN ESCWA to tell us something, to set the stage for us. It's all about access to finance, access to finance. And you guys in the UN talking about trillions of dollars, the gap in financing, We have headache of all these needs and gaps. Are these true gaps that we really need to deal with to eradicate poverty? And what kind of potential you think creative ways of financing really need to be in play? Please, go ahead. Ms. Rula, by the way, is the Director of Sustainable Development in the ESCWA, and we're very grateful to have you with us.
Thank you. It's actually my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Rami. I'm, as Dr. Rami said, Director of Sustainable Development Division within the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia that covers 18 member countries. And actually, the member countries are a subset of the countries that the Islamic Development Bank covers. And I really thank you for this opportunity to talk about a region that really is a good case in point for why do we need finance and why do we need to move from looking at access to finance into empowerment, really, for being able to access the finance. I think this is, let me also tell you that this is a timely subject because this is where the crux of the issue in terms of Agenda 2030, but also in terms of translating the Paris Agreement into action. We really need to, okay, how do we go from that vision with a very ambitious agenda into getting to the implementing it with requirements in terms of resources, with requirements in terms of human power, human capital, with requirements into data, statistics, information, and an institutional setup that is really way beyond what many developing countries can deliver. The good news is that it's a universal agenda, and that in many ways within that agenda, and what you've talked about, Dr. Rami, it holds also developed countries accountable in many ways to say how they are also delivering on their commitment to that. It's also very interesting because it talks about an issue that I don't know very much about, Islamic finance, but I think it's very timely at a time when Islam is being associated with a lot of negative things, to say the least. It really is a window of a breath of fresh air to talk about an approach that has stood its ground and has proven success. This is not new, Islamic finance, but I think it's really good to showcase this, this opportunity to allow us to think outside of the box. This has been in the Addis Ababa action agenda to look for innovative finance. It is in the SDGs, it is in the climate agreement, and we really need to be thinking outside of the box, and I'm happy to, I'm really looking forward to hearing about all this. Now, the region, the Arab region, is one of the, and also the choice of the issue of poverty is a very good case in point to show the integration, especially when we speak about multidimensional poverty. And poverty, as you mentioned, it's not just a matter of having, lifting the poor, the improvement that has happened, but also, and when you say in a region, for example, that we have the Arab region, you have 7.4 on, if we count the $1, $125 a day, 7.4% remain poor. This is 7.4 too many, really. And when you bring in the other aspects, which is one of the areas that UNESCO has been working on, multidimensional poverty, and we bring in non-monetary things like access to health, access to education, access to water, where in a region where we have most of our countries in dire poverty in terms of access to water. These bring down the figures in a completely different perspective. We have that, and then the figure goes up to 13.5%, which really brings you a dimension, and it's even contested. We really need to know, again, when we speak about that, we really need to know who are the poor, where they are, and what sort of group are we to. We are not talking about one block. There are differences, there are gender differences, there are differences in community. You're talking about also migrants, you're talking about refugees, you're talking about differences between urban and rural areas, differences between countries. And when a region, and that makes it even more difficult for our region to access, especially the developing countries, to access funding, because we're always stigmatized as a rich region. But it's a region that has a lot of differences, and it's really important to highlight that. So that was highlighted in the study that we did on multi-dimensional poverty. And the numbers are really scary when you look at how many, and in trillions we're talking about what is needed to bridge that gap. What is needed to bridge that gap when we say just poverty, but we're not talking about reconstruction, which is many countries in the region have been demolished. We are not talking about environmental degradation that has been estimated at like almost over 5% of GDP. We're not talking about the cost of conflict, and all these things are important to look at. ESCWA has done a within the context of finance for development, has established an Arab Finance for Development scorecard. And in that, we're looking at, for every $1 that is gained in the region, $2.8 are lost in outflows. And therefore, when we speak about funding or financing, we really need to look at the capacity to mobilize internally the resources and where do we get the resources from. Funding gap, we're looking not just at what funding is there, there is a mismatch definitely between what funding is happening and where are the funds needed. And here I come to really the crux of the matter, which is the challenges. The challenges maybe are not in the availability of finance, and I'll give you one example in what we've been working on with mobilizing resource and building the capacity of member countries in accessing Green Climate Fund. When you know that there are $2 billion sitting in the Green Climate Fund, and our region, only Morocco, managed to get funding from the Green Climate Fund, we ask ourselves the question why. And one of the main challenges is really the capacity to mobilize these resources, the institutional capacity, the ability to absorb these funding and be able to manage them. And here is where I think we need to look at innovative finances and to look at the way Islamic finance can address these changes. We really need to also look at transparency issues, at the flow of the funding, and how are the mechanisms to ensure that it goes to really the people who need it most in that sense, and the ability of countries to manage these resources. So with that, I would like to stress that funding and financing for eradicating poverty is not just about finance, as you said. It is about empowerment. It is about institution building, and it is about looking at a governance structure that will allow people to have a better life. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this setting the stage, and I'm sure the guys on my left had taken note of the $2 billion green funds available, if they know how to get to it, huh? So funding is available, but it's how to get to it, I guess. So thank you very much, Ms. Rula. I'd like to move to my left, and we'll start, can we go by age? No offense, Dr. Amjad. Okay, we'll start with Dr. Amjad Saqib, and he is, if I start talking about him, it's going to take like 3 pages, so we'll just do with the fact that he's the founding chairman and executive director of the Akhawat Foundation. But something to know about him, he was a distinguished public servant in Pakistan for a long time, and we don't know what happened. He just converted into working with the poor. Maybe he can tell us what happened and how did you get into this, and maybe address the subject of the seminar directly after that. Please, have about 7 minutes maximum. Please.
All right. Just remind me on 5 minutes, after 5 minutes.
Okay, sure.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Dr. Rami Ahmed. Distinguished participants, I absolutely agree with Dr. Ahmed that financial inclusion is a means, and the ultimate objective is empowerment. Empowering the poor to take the most important decisions of their lives themselves. So Islamic finance basically also sees the financial inclusion in the same context, that it sees finance as a means to achieve the end. The ultimate end is empowering the poor people. So I will begin with a very brief story. As you have mentioned, that I switched over from civil service to the civil society. I was sitting in, that story will help you understand what is really, empowerment, how can it change the lives of the millions of the people. So I was sitting in my office one day, then a lady came to me and she said that I need your support. I need your help. Then she narrated her story that I'm a widow. I have 4 children. Only a few days ago, I lost my husband. But I don't want my children, I want to help them accomplish their dreams. I don't want them to go astray. So then I asked, how can I help? And she said that she is in need of some money, but not in need of charity. She said that I don't accept doles because that is denial of my self-respect. And at the same time, she said that she is not willing to take any loan which is interest-based because that is against her faith. So the two ends she showed me and then closed the door that she will not be willing to receive charity and she will not be willing to accept interest-based lending. Then suddenly she came up with a solution herself. She said that there is a midway, and that is a Sharia compliant loan. That is a loan which is free of interest. She said that if you give me $100, I will be able to make life of my children and my family will move ahead, and we are sure that we will be able to come out of poverty. Instead of giving her $100, I asked her that what would she do with those $100. She said that she will purchase 2 sewing machines. So we managed to get these funds and helped her purchase these 2 sewing machines. She started working on those machines, and during next 6 months, she not only, put food on the table for the family, but she also sent her 2 children to school. And out of the income of those 2 sewing machines, she married one of her daughters. After 6 months, she again came to my office and said that I'm here to return you the $100 which I took from you. Those $100 have been able to bring a big change in my life. So here is your money. But I would like to give you an advice. So first of all, I was extremely happy to see him back and returning my money. And then when she asked that she is going to give me an advice, I was very attentive. She said to me that don't put these $100 back in your pocket. Give it to somebody else. I'm sure his or her life will also be changed. So that was the moment, doctor, I decided to quit civil service and wanted to do something similar. So we created a fund. That is a revolving fund. And that fund was created by some donors, some philanthropists, some of my friends. And through that fund, we identified many other such people, such families who wanted to do something, who wanted to come out of poverty, who don't want to get anything like charity. They never like to compromise their self-respect. So we gave money to them. They also started some businesses, and they also were able to take the decisions about their life themselves. They were able to send their children to school. They were able to buy medicine. They were able to have a good quality food. The story is long, but after 16 years, I'm extremely happy to share that those $100 which were given to that poor widow, now the total amount which we have been able to disperse is more than 400 million US dollars. And we have been able to serve more than 2 million poor families in Pakistan, which amount to around 10 million people throughout the country. And this is, alhamdulillah, the largest interest-free program in the world, and especially in Pakistan. And the number of people who are actively involved and engaged with us at this point of time is around 1 million. We have more than 700 branches throughout the country, and we're working in 350 cities. We have a very qualified and very professionally trained workforce of around 4,000 people who are giving these loans. But let me tell you, besides this story, the most important principles. As Dr. Ahmed has been mentioning, we don't see microfinance as just the ultimate objective. We believe in empowerment, we believe in engagement, we believe in partnership, and we believe in the wisdom of the poor people. We know that they are best judge of their lives. They know how to fight poverty. They just need a financial inclusion, but the ultimate objective is to bring a breath of fresh air, as has been mentioned, in their lives. So our first principle is that we give loans without interest. Number two, we do this social and financial intermediation by involving religious places. And the third principle is that there is a element of volunteerism throughout the organization. We work, few of the people in the organization work on wages and salaries, but a large number of people are working free of cost with the true missionary spirit to help the people come out of poverty. So it's a blend of volunteerism and necessary compensation. The fourth principle is very important. We encourage our borrowers to become donors one day, so that once they come out of poverty, then they will also be willingly contributing some funds in that credit pool which we have established to provide loans to the poor people. This is not a requirement. This is real empowerment, that we empower them, that if you are coming out of poverty and somebody has helped you in the form of a benevolent loan, in the form of a loan which doesn't ask you to give some cost of the capital. So now you are coming out of poverty, you are benefiting from somebody else's philanthropic intentions. So you should also be willing to contribute. You should also be willing to support somebody else. The name of the organization is Akhuwat. Akhuwat means brotherhood or solidarity. So this is solidarity between haves and have-nots. So if you are crossing the poverty threshold, then you are also supposed to support somebody else. But this is not a condition. This is not a coercion. This is...
Forgive my interruption, but you mean brotherhood and sisterhood?
Yeah, both. Absolutely. No. This is more of a sisterhood because the first borrower was a woman. So we established the bond of sisterhood with that lady, and that is the beginning. So this fourth principle encourages and inspires the beneficiaries to become donors. And believe you me that more than 70% of our borrowers have now become our donors. So they give $1 or $2 a month and contribute that fund to that fund, the revolving fund which I have mentioned, and that revolving fund is more than 150 million US dollars now. It is continuously revolving amongst the poor people. 99.9% is the recovery percentage, and besides giving the original capital, the people are giving around 2 million US dollars as a donation every year. So this is the sustainability dimension that people usually ask us, that how come an interest-free program could be sustainable? So the sustainability is, that hinges on this transformation which takes place once the poor people get loans. They are really empowered, and we don't put any condition on them. So this is their, kind of a generosity and philanthropic bent of mind, that they become donors. So this is very briefly what we do. And the lessons which I would like to share is that we cannot eliminate poverty just by doing business with the poor people. It demands much more than that. We need to create a mutual support system. We need to create an engagement and a dialogue, initiate a dialogue with the poor people, and really transform them with the perspective of empowerment. So they must be, as you very rightly said, that they are wise enough to deal with the complex situations of life. But the real thing is, once they have financial inclusion, once they have many other inclusions, they have education, they have health, there are other facilities, then they will be in a better position to decide about their future. And another thing is that this is not only exclusive towards Islamic finance. Islamic finance is, by name it's Islamic finance, but the principles can be implemented in any society, in any culture, in any religion, because all religions, especially the Abrahamic religions, they talk about interest-free finance. So if we think that it is Islamic finance, it is exclusive for the Muslim countries, that's not the correct version. So I would like to suggest that we need to see the poor as partners. We need to engage with them. We need to empower them. And for that, we need to create a mutual support system where everybody is willing to support each other. And the most important thing is that Islamic finance is not exclusive for any Islamic society. It is for everybody, every religion, every culture can benefit from the true meanings and the spirit and the mission behind that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think you're talking about universal principles that are applicable to the suffering, I mean, when it comes to the poverty issue, but very, very impressive story. I think you would agree with me. 99% recovery, 70% of them become donors. I mean, these figures are really impressive. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. Perhaps later we can come back with a few questions, but let me move to Dr. Tariq Shima. And he's the founder and the convener of the Global Donors Forum, founder of the World Congress of Muslim Philanthropists, and a bunch of other titles. Forgive me for not going through this, but this is a renowned social innovator. And let me start by saying, when I see philanthropy, charity comes to mind, and giving comes to mind. And we're talking about eradicating poverty, but yet we're trying to challenge the issue of giving handouts. So where do you draw the line between charity and empowerment and doing business with the poor? Are we misusing these terminologies here, or what is happening from your perspective, Dr. Tariq, please?
Thank you. I thought I was younger than Dr. Nabil, but it's fine. I can start. Well, you know, talking of taking the paradigm shift from financing to empowering, it's also important to note that we also have to shift from charity to philanthropy. And what I mean with that is that charity, particularly the Muslim giving by and large, has been generous, has been spontaneous in response to natural and man-made disasters, often lacking the strategy and paying, you know, much needed attention to sustainability. And then we also know that to some extent the transparency. So I mean, this whole complex situation that surrounds the Muslim giving, in addition to the negative imagery that Raula, you have mentioned, we need to recalibrate the Muslim giving. And that is what it means to us, is that we have to have more organized, strategic giving, which means we have to invest in the future, we have to invest in the problem solving and not just the either problem perpetuating or problem management. So often there is very little left, the philanthropic dollar or money that actually is invested in innovating the solutions that can solve the problems or reduce the poverty. And we have developed, be it is zakat, be it is sadaqah or any other, or it's a faith-inspired or even secular giving by the Muslims today, often goes hand to hand, which is perpetuating the dependence. And I think we need to think about it. I would also like to say that the Islamic finance, and it's very true when you associate yourself with the faith, then you are not just another conventional business sector. That means you are bringing a lot more ethical, requirements that you have to fulfill. And to me, if the triple bottom line is not at the centrality of Islamic finance, it should call itself anything but not Islamic. It could be alternative finance because they are not using riba, they're not using interest. But to call it an Islamic, I think it has to be understood that the selling Sharia compliant products are not enough, because you can be a bank on the front when you're selling the products, calling it Islamic finance, but when you accumulate the wealth and you are not spending or investing in changing the people's lives, you are, to me, as capital bank as any interest-based bank is. So I think there's a huge challenge here, how to redefine what the Islamic finance is and what is the ethical imperative that they have to follow. What I believe they need to do is, beyond just the selling the products to the bankable, to actually going into innovating and funding products and services that help the underbanked, because we have the huge poverty actually is the people who are underbanked, and no bank is gonna offer them access to the funds and the finances they need. The other thing is that when we look at the, what is our landscape? I mean, yes, we do understand that poverty has been reduced in, let's say, in past few decades, but it's probably not true when it comes to the IDB member countries. We make almost 23, 24% of the world population, but poverty has not decreased if it not increased, you know, in many ways. We have very low literacy, we have a high child mortality rate, and now through the conflicts and inequalities, we are also having a rising radicalization. So I think it is very important that we have to be honest, we have to be bold in admitting our challenges. We just cannot simply believe that the SDG is going to solve our problems. We have to think even beyond that. Yes, every SDG goal is important to us, but may not be every intervention that is used by other, let's say, the parts of the world is necessary for us. We need to work on innovating homegrown solutions that are low cost, high impact, and they are very compatible with our own social as well as religious norms. So having said that, I would say that the bulk of our populations which are either facing the poverty challenge or they are going to be the victims of the poverty are the youth. And it's also very important to highlight that the three major interventions where Islamic finance can make a big difference are the skill acquisition, higher education, and also financing the entrepreneurial activities, particularly startups. And to close my few words, I would like to say what could be, in my humble opinion or my 2 cents, and what could be the way how Islamic finance can actually lead the paradigm shift from financing to empowerment is that we need a broad-based, we need a multi-partner poverty eradication ecosystem. It is not a job of a one bank, it's not a job of the multilateral agencies, it is not a job of the philanthropist or these, what I call is the work that is being done, let's say in Tunis, in Pakistan. We need to come up with a broad-based ecosystem which can do few important things. It can innovate solutions, it can fund the interventions that work, it can monitor. It's also very important that the interventions often funded within our domain and within our landscape are often not very efficient. So we have to understand where the ROI is. Are they really efficient enough when we compare it with the standards? And then also we mentioned, as someone has mentioned here, about the building capacity. And then the last but most important is connecting people, connecting the actors which are sitting on my right, be it Dr. Amjad Saqib, be it Dr. Nabil. These are the various interventions that have proven to be successful, needs to be scaled up, needs to be replicated in other parts of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tariq, and thanks for the bold statements. And unless we really have a critical look at what we are doing, we really cannot make progress. It's not about lip service, it's about really making progress on the ground. Interesting what the notion of ecosystem, and I think if we can develop this notion of ecosystem because we do have a lot of good initiatives, right, left and center. Perhaps if we can come up, and maybe there is that I am not aware of, the characteristics of an ecosystem that will enable such a shift from only financing to empowerment, this will be a great addition. We come back to the youngest, I guess. Did I go by? He still claims he's younger than you. Okay, Dr. Nabil Ghalab was one of the brilliant young professionals that worked in IDB long time ago, but he is a chairman and a CEO at Zaytuna Tamkeen. And maybe we'll give him a couple of minutes to say what's Zaytuna Tamkeen. And then your experience in really bringing this type of activities in Tunis. Please, Brother Nabil.
Thank you, Dr. Rami. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everybody. I am pleased to be here with you today, and special thanks. I extend special thanks to ISFD for extending an invitation to Zaytuna Tamkeen. For native speaker, excuse my horrible English and my heavy accent, but I will try my best to express my ideas clearly. Zaytuna Tamkeen is the first economic empowerment institution in Tunisia using Islamic financial products. But before Zitouna Temkin, I would like, to go through my small experience in IDB. It's 7 years experience, but I learned a lot in this institution. Well, during my career, I worked on several projects in different countries, and I was blessed by to drive the implementation of some microfinance projects in some member countries. And I witnessed how this kind of projects had a life-changing impact on directly and indirectly on more than 800,000 people in Sudan, and on thousands of families in Palestine were empowered and started contributing to the local economy by a gross revenue exceeding $30 million every year. So I was saying, why not to establish the first economic empowerment institution in my home country, and the idea came to me to expand this approach and make it more holistic. So I felt the need to transmit this approach from really project business model to institutional business approach, and this is why we established Zitouna Temkin. Zitouna Temkin attracted reputable shareholders in the country. Today, the shareholding structure includes the largest Islamic bank in the country, the largest takaful company in the country, the sovereign fund, Tunisian sovereign fund, two groups among the top 5 groups in the country, Dilis Holding and Polina Holding, and also we enjoy the presence of reputable international shareholders, namely IDB and Jayda Fund, the Moroccan fund, owned by the Sovereign Fund of Morocco, the French Sovereign Fund, the KfW, and the AFD. The Zitouna Temkin has ambitious objectives. We would like really to empower like 700,000 people over 5 years, open 25 branches, and mobilize a portfolio of $500 million dinar over 5 years also. This is Zitouna Temkin, Doctor. But if you permit, I can go back a bit to the economic, to talk about the economic empowerment approach.
4 minutes. Do whatever you like in the next 4 minutes.
All right. Well, I would like to highlight the importance of shifting from the financial inclusion to the economic inclusion. Financial inclusion is usually promoted as a powerful tool to eradicate poverty, to reduce disparities, and to fight poverty and to foster the development all over the world. However, after 4 decades of financial inclusion, the results are not that good, and the broad picture indicate that financial inclusion did not lift up people from poverty. So we cannot talk about financial inclusion and giving access to people, giving service, financial service and products to people without giving them in exchange sustainable economic activity, allowing them to reimburse their debt. By doing this, by giving this liberal access with very affordable cost to poor people, we are capturing them in a trap of endless borrowing, and we are going to limit their freedom, their economic freedom, and I would say even their human freedom. Remember what the Nobel Prize winning economist Amartya Sen said. He said that development is about expanding the real freedom of people. So the real freedom today can be achieved by focusing on sustainable activity of poor people, is by giving them a set of financial and non-financial services, is by establishing this genuine relationship between the recipient of financing and the real economy. We have to allow them to get access to sustainable investment opportunities adapted to their skills. We have to open them communication channels with economic players from public sectors and private sector. We have also to set up economic empowerment or capacity building programs and plans for these poor people, and of course providing funding. the execution of this financial inclusion, of this economic inclusion, sorry, is straightforward and simple. This is the good news. But it should be very comprehensive and very integrated, and this is the hard part of it. We start the process. I'm going to be a bit technical.
Can you give us example, maybe more concrete, to bring this notion of economic inclusion?
Yes, we launched the first economic empowerment project with the leading with Delis Holding, which is a dairy producer, the leading dairy producing firm in the country, and it consists of financing 2,500 small milk producer. We give them, we offer them capacity building, we secure the financing for them, we accompany them, we negotiate on their behalf better terms and conditions with the off-taker. We manage to have higher price. We manage also to have subsidies from the government. And today, these people are multiplying by 3 their cattle, and by 200% their monthly income revenue. So this is an example of our project.
What's in it for you as Zaytun Tamkeen? I mean, how do you make money doing business with these milk producers?
By financing these people, but at the same time we're the only microfinance institution in the country with an economic empowerment department dedicated, you know, to engineer economic empowerment projects and to negotiate on behalf of the beneficiaries with all related parties involved in any project.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I know you have more examples, but well, maybe we'll leave it for the next. Thank you very much. But you mentioned something, you negotiate with the off-takers.
Yes.
Could you just say a few words on this? I mean, if a group of milk producers and you as Zaytun Tamkeen, if they go to the off-taker alone, you mean they will get different terms when you negotiate on their behalf?
Number one, they will get different terms, they will get different prices. They are not able even to integrate this value chain. So first of all, we sign an agreement with an off-taker, which is Delis. Then we go back, we build up our business model, a realistic and feasible business model. Then we establish a set of relationships, or smart relationships, with the government, with the civil society, with even other private sector players. And at the end, we recruit beneficiaries. We contacted them, we selected them, and we hired them to integrate or to be a part of this project.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think the notion of economic versus financial inclusion is quite clear in your talking points here. Before we open it for discussion and questions, perhaps I could go back to ISFD. And do you have any specific projects, any specific programs that will highlight this notion of empowerment that you could share with us in some 3-4 minutes, please?
Yeah. In fact, I prepared the presentation, but I don't think I need to go through it.
No, please.
Just I mean, why ISFD today is choosing this new approach of looking at poverty. I mean, we've been doing financing for the last 6-7 years. We have done about 665 million of financing in 5 programs as showed in the film. But we believe that investing with the poor and investing in the poor would have a better impact, would have a better results as far as getting out poor people from poverty. In fact, the concept is not new for IDB, is not new for ISFD. We have a number of examples. We have a number of projects that we have been testing this new comprehensive approach of looking at poverty. We have done some projects in Palestine, in Benin, and in Sudan. These are very, very successful examples that I can show you from.
If you can just pick one example, please,
Yeah,
just for the sake of time.
Yeah, just for example, in Sudan.
Okay.
These are the results. I mean, we have invested 65 million at the beginning with other donors and other financiers. 136 million added later on, just to show you that the program has been very successful, and then it was increased. We have used and strengthened cooperation between key economic players within the country itself through central bank, zakat fund, local banks. All these has contribute to this project. 172,000 people enabled every year through this project. 51% of them are women. 800,000 people depend on this project. We have used a number of Islamic modes of financing, and as explained by my colleagues here, I mean, the Islamic modes of financing, we are investing with the poor and we share the risk and we share the profit with them instead of being indebting them. That's, I think, a big difference between the Islamic microfinance and the normal credit finance or microfinance that is provided by microfinance institution. And here we provide equitable access also to the poor, as explained by Nabil. I think we give them the possibility to have a better price, a fair price in the market, and this is where is the, I think, the added value for the poor people.
Any support from the government in Sudan on this one?
Yes, the government of Sudan has participated with, I think, 131 million in this case, and that's through the Central Bank of Sudan. Yeah. Another story to show maybe in the Palestine. This is again, we started with a 10 million, and we see that 131 million have been added for this project. This has really made a big impact and changed lives in there. 13,000 projects, 26,000 jobs created. We've been improving lives and conditions for 39,000 families. 5,000 people went out of poverty. 270,000 people depend, and 60% of the children are part of this, of the 270,000 people. So this project produces about 30 million annually.
Okay.
We are also embarking in other important initiatives as part of the economic empowerment program. We are establishing a big fund for supporting economic empowerment projects in our member countries. This will be a partnership with the King Salman Relief Center in Saudi Arabia, but this is also open to other donors and other government to participate in this program. We believe that that would be also very important because it will be guaranteeing some investors and attracting investors, donors, to come in these risky places. It is not easy to attract investments in these places. So this program will start with projects in Syria. We have already prepared the concept note for Syria, for Yemen, but also Afghanistan is something that is very close to implement, inshallah. So these are real examples, Rami, to show, and this is not something new. We have been testing it, and we have been really, really happy with the good results that have been achieved within IDB, and I think that would be the right move to make for ISFD in achieving its objective of reducing poverty, eradicating poverty in our member country.
Very good. Thank you very much. We'll keep it at this. It's a rosy picture. We didn't talk about the challenges in mobilizing resources and really perhaps in isolated areas. These are success stories, but I think if you are to go into scaling up, perhaps issues of transparency, issues of resource mobilization, people who are putting money, they'd like a different reporting system, perhaps we get a chance to talk about the challenges later if we get a chance. But in the few minutes that we still have left, maybe we open it up for discussion from the audience if they like. I can see a hand there. Please, see, we're taking care of gender equality and SDG 5, especially for the lady who wrote on Twitter, by the way, if she's following. She said, I hope something about SDG 5 will come by way of economic empowerment. Please identify yourself and your comment and try to keep it as short so we give an opportunity for the rest. Please.
Thank you so much. My name is Fatima Ahmed, and I'm from Sudan, representing grassroots women organization called Zainab for Women Development Organization. I'm really impressed with all the presenters and the models and the examples. And I would like to say there are many at the ground, like success stories, exactly like what has been said. I mean, attempts from the women to help the women. Our program for the women farmers since 2006 actually won the prize of the IDB 2012. We are women laureates for the IDB Women in Development Prize. But still, I feel like there is disconnect. Still, we need more attention for the women empowerment because we feel that our programs, like one examples from other many I know they are doing very good on the ground, but they are not being identified. So I hope you will have, with this good initiative, good way of reaching to the real partners, stakeholders, and also real mechanisms of how to reach to those, and accountability, because really we have to be very frank. In our situation, we have problem of transparency and accountability. So we have to be very accountable to what we are doing and what we are believing in. So we don't want to say, but I just want to mention something, because we started with the Salam to help the women to get from the bank, because they never been in the, to go to the bank. We actually play as a grantee for the bank. But we found the Salam is not a good, I don't know, this is Islamic way of, especially for the farmer. And those are very small-scale women farmers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Fatima. I think you bring good points. By the way, there are 13 modes of financing in Islamic finance.
Yeah.
And some of the, maybe for those of us who are not familiar with, there are certain modes of financing that are amenable for farming, for example. Some farmers need the water to come to their land. Instead of giving cash, and instead of having exchange cash between the NGOs that are implementing, and thank you very much for the great work that you are doing, between the NGOs and the beneficiary, the NGO will build the irrigation scheme, and for a percentage of the harvest, later on they will pay for the water. So this is one mode of financing, but there are different modes of financing to build this. This is where it comes in the negotiation and the adaptation of because an exchange of cash also has its own difficulties. So perhaps this is where the collective negotiation that should happen between the NGOs and the community of farmers, and the bigger the farmers community, I think, the more ownership they will have in their projects, and hopefully will. But thank you very much. I see a hand there and two hands. Can we start with the lady, please?
Thank you. Lisin Kulatowska of the Commons Cluster. I'm absolutely fine, really fascinated. Could you go into some more specifics, like you did just now with the farmers, about these 13 different ways of financing? Just a couple more examples would be most enlightening. Thank you.
Just like we talked about Musaka, could you give an example of?
There are a lot of mode of financing. The most known one and very adapted and appropriate to the needs of poor people is diminishing musharaka. The financial institution
diminishing musharaka.
Diminishing musharaka,
which is declining participation.
Yeah, digressive participation or partnership. The financial institution sign a partnership agreement with farmers, and then over years the farmers buy back part of the capital, and the financial institution is exiting over 5 or 10 years time, this was applied in Sudan and many other countries, and it was very successful mode of financing.
Thank you. The idea is to give the beneficiary the benefit of owning the equipment or owning the land, so it's a declining participation where the financier comes in, will reap the benefit, but in a declining way. So the percentage by the end of the period, let's say 5 years, and this is what happened in Sudan, I think, they own the storage facilities, for example. So the community of the farmers will be owning that storage facility, and they will be, instead of giving part of the return to the financier, in this, they will be owning that. When we talk about 13 modes of financing, they are 17 actually, but they start from the outright grant to loans interest-free, to all the way to equity. So we become partners, so it's a shareholding equity with the farmers to do certain activities. So the range is so fast and quick. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Jim Block. I am with Project Climate Smart, and I'm actually representing a private company here. We are partnering now with the government of Iraq to bring Project Climate Smart, which is essentially a project to bring weather systems and weather stations to farmers to enable them to implement precision agricultural practices and increase their productivity. The actual investment required for each farm is really quite small, and so my question to you is this the sort of financing that you see your project here enabling? Because it's not always big $500 million grants. We're talking about grants on the order of a few thousand US dollars.
This is a few thousand dollars, by the way. It's accumulative, the numbers. So the millions that you see here is basically reflecting thousands of beneficiaries. But could you clarify the question in terms of what equipment you are getting there, or how do I mean?
It's a small on-farm weather station, and then an ongoing monthly subscription service to continue the data flowing and continue the information sharing.
So it's a service versus fee, basically.
Exactly.
And you're trying to say if there is an Islamic financing way to help the farmers
to help them
pay the fee.
Exactly.
Exactly. You would like to address this? Very, very quickly, please.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. What we do is, we do have Islamic financing. When we are talking, is not only financing like money, is a capacity building as well. So from capacity perspective, so what we do, we use what we call it ijara, because they cannot rent the big machine or a tractor or whatever service that you have. So through ijara, we try to help them, like more than like, can you say like 200, 300 farmers, they come together and we help all of them through the ijara. So we rent for them and from you in their behalf, we rent it and they use the service, and then gonna come back whatever other service they needed, even to storage their the milk or to storage. So it's a capacity building. From capacity perspective, we use what you call it mode of finance called ijara.
Okay,
yeah.
but to be,
and it could be millions, not only like a couple of thousand, could be a million. So they can be, you can be rich there.
an idea, just an idea. This equipment, for example, how much it costs to own it, rather than just to provide the service on it. Okay, this may be a community of would
a few $1,000 for how many farmers will be benefiting for a few this?
We would be talking about one weather station, perhaps able to cover 5 to 10 hectares of land. Yeah, please.
Go ahead, please. Just put your mic, please, and identify yourself.
My name is Matt Boulos. I'm Director of International Sales for DTN, working with the Mission of Iraq in MENA and North America. So the project in Iraq, the way it's coming together as far as in Project Climate Smart is just an extension of what we're doing here in the United States and North America. So We are one of the largest providers of agricultural services in North America, and we've already built out this network of precision weather equipment that gathers the front-end data that you use as a farmer to essentially make every decision you make for the entire year, from growing season to harvest. And this is a technology that has not existed at the level we have it at this point because of how cost-effective it is and how easy it is to implement. So the idea of Project Climate Smart is essentially to take what we're doing here. Over the last 5 years, we built out 6,000 weather station network, ties all the ag communities together. We're trying to basically take that and in one fell swoop, splash this network throughout the country of Iraq.
Excellent. I think Dr. Amjad was trying to see if he can divide this cost for all the farmers. Could you address this?
We will be happy to, examine this and maybe buy 1 or 2 weather stations, and then we will involve a community of farmers to, gradually pay for that because they cannot pay the upfront cost. Yeah. So we would like to mobilize some resources from a bank or from state or from other philanthropist institutions and be an intermediary between the funding and then the ultimate the beneficiaries. So we will be happy to know the total cost and how can this technology be transferred.
Thank you. Okay, if you promise in 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. My name is Arseny Kulish. I actually represent the NGO that's General Consultative with ECOSOC that is running the Climate Smart project. And I want to point out a very important thing. Those stations are manufactured in the United States. They're not supposed to be manufactured in the United States in the long run. So these several $1,000s or whatever, that shouldn't be the expense. Actually, the project is built so the local community becomes a manufacturing platform and sustainable maintaining platform. So the only service that comes from US is only the data analytics and the results. So this is not the financial project, and we look as NGO against projects that funnel money and invest it in American-based company or whatnot.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments other than these climate smart? We've been. You did a good job between the 3 of you here. Okay. Any? Okay. Other? He's number 4 or the okay.
Thank you. No, but I feel encouraged to. So I'm just a volunteer for Solar Cookers International. So it's a much smaller technology, using the sunlight to cook, not without solar photo.
Sunlight to cook.
Yeah, with basically just with the temperature, without photovoltaics, and also from previous experience, I know that these small technologies can make an impact on people's lives, but it's difficult for people, but also the organization to project how many cost savings they will actually have. And I mean, there's also health aspect and also empowerment, gender aspect to it. But for you as financial actors, I was interested to know if you have experience with that, because I've seen in microfinance projects having to struggle with that. How to assess very small scale, like household scale projects, benefits, and how to make it profitable for not only for the people but also for the financial player.
Got you. How can we get financing to such it's house cooking? The product, you're improving the quality of life, but he's not selling something that he can pay you back.
Yeah, of course. We have some funding available for similar projects, but gradually we will be, marketing such products to the farmers, to the poor people, to poor households, and then with a very small kind of monthly installments, we can recover the amount. But the entire, scheme of things would have to be examined. That what is the cost and how that mechanism can be, finalized with you. We will be happy to talk to you after the.
Yeah, and perhaps if it could be connected to not only household, perhaps if restaurants in the same village, in the same area, that they can be, because you need to produce some income out of this at one point. So if it's only isolated intervention, it might not be able to produce that income. But if you make it part of a comprehensive program, that people will have some productivity somewhere else so they can pay for this. I'd like to keep 1 minute, 1 minute to each one of the panelists to conclude the way they like. We don't want to keep people, anyway, it's the end of the week and it's Friday and it's night. So let me start with the reverse order. We'll start with Nabil. Please take a minute to conclude the way you like. It will be great if we can walk away with some recommendations, whether it's to the MDBs, to financiers, to the government, to the private sector, since we have private sector with us, to the NGOs. If you are to give a recommendation, I mean, please go ahead.
Yes, I would say that poverty has no borders, so we have no exclusivity with our model, and we are open to any collaboration. Our next step in Zitouna Temkin is to establish the International Center for Economic Empowerment to duplicate this model elsewhere, especially in neighbor countries in North Africa and Africa. With our shareholders, we can do that. So the International Center for Economic Empowerment is under establishment, and we even invited ISFD to be part of it. The ultimate goal is to duplicate the economic empowerment projects, is to duplicate this know-how, is to help institutions who want to create their economic empowerment arms to do so. And as I said, we are open to any collaboration. The second point is that I wish that governments give enough support to the economic empowerment models by setting up a legal framework, helping this institution to fulfill their role, their developmental role, and to help them to eradicate poverty globally.
Again, International Center of what?
For Economic Empowerment.
And it's in?
Actually, we think that this center will have different branches. The main branch should be anywhere, you know, it depends on the shareholders, but branch to cover North Africa, branch to cover...
Under establishment, the center.
Under establishment,
okay,
yes.
Thank you. Dr. Tariq.
I think the Muslim world or the IDB member countries are unique in many ways. I mean, we have, where we have extreme poverty, we also have a prosperity, and we have plenty of wealth available. It's really the task is how we can leverage that wealth and transform into a powerhouse for change. And as I said, the poverty in its nature within the IDB countries is different in terms of its implications for the Muslim as well as for the world at large. And I think we need to be working on a war footing and look for the out-of-box solutions. And I would like to repeat that the time has come that all actors who can offer whether time, talent, or treasure, they need to get together and build an ecosystem for a long-term solution. Thank you.
Ecosystem. Thank you. Ms. Rula, please.
Yeah, I'll take it from that ecosystem. I really like that idea, and that it is a process where you bring everyone together to work on that. I think the challenge will be in how do we institutionalize this? How do we scale it up? How do you bring because you really want to also hold governments accountable. You don't want to tell them that they're off the hook, if you want, in a way. They have to be part and parcel of the process. And then again, how can we, what message are we taking home from that? When we speak of these homegrown solutions, we speak of technology transfer. It is the small technology, the appropriate technology, the technology that is targeted, for example, in rural area. When we really know who these stakeholders are, the partners, as you said, the poor, not as a group, but as really who they are and where they are, you end up devising proper policy, not just transfer, but building up, getting getting them to produce the machines, if we're talking about weather stations, getting them to access funds that they can actually manage, that they don't really need to go through lengthy process to access these funds. So this is what I...
Thank you. Actually, we need to know where the poor are. Just relying on averages will not really help us. There are pockets of poverty even in rich countries, as you just mentioned, and we have clusters of different... Dr. Amjad, 1 minute, please, to conclude.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rami. So I will like to give 2 suggestions. First of all, as far as we understand, if there are 2 billion people in this universe poor, or 3 billion people on this globe which are poor, but the point is that we are not poor because of inadequate resources. Poverty is because of, inequitable distribution of wealth. So we have to consider that how can we this distributive element of the resources, of the finances, of the wealth, that is extremely important. The rich and the non-rich, the poor and the non-poor, there need to be a bond of solidarity between the 2 sections of the society, which will ultimately lead to poverty alleviation. Poverty can only be eliminated by sharing, by caring, by establishing a bond of solidarity with the have-nots. So this is number 1, my suggestion. And the next thing is that we need to really understand the strengths and weaknesses of the poor people. They are not poor because of their own faults. They are poorer because of our, the professionals, the people who have knowledge, who have wisdom, who have resources, who have power. So we need to understand them, and then we need to, identify their knowledge, their abilities, their skills, and then build their capacity. And then this can only be done by forging partnerships, by engaging with them, by learning from their wisdom and their understanding of the events. So only through this partnership, we will be able to find these solutions which are very creative, which are pragmatic, and which can be exercised and implemented by the poor themselves.
Thank you. Very impressive, because we sometimes tend to know how to solve the problem of the poor by dictating solutions from 5-star hotels or from international capitals or from the UN or from the World Bank or from IDB, where if they are empowered, probably they will come up with the right solutions on the ground. Thank you, Dr. Amjad. Last word, Brother Khamis.
Yeah.
1 minute, please, so we can conclude.
Sure.
Sorry to keep you over time.
Just I want to say that the Islamic Development Bank, as a leading Islamic finance institution, has been always innovative and creating new products. And I believe that the economic empowerment as a new approach, as a new concept in alleviating poverty, although it was created by IDB, but I believe this is a world concept and should not be left to the IDB member countries to benefit from it. I believe that this is something we should, I think, offer to anyone who can really help the poor getting out of poverty. We believe that this is the right approach. We have tested. There are very good results, and we believe that investing with the poor is really much, much more profitable, even investing with the rich people. So with that, I would close my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Khmayes, Dr. Aisha from ISFD for sponsoring this event. I would like to thank the panelists, all of them. The bottom line, economic empowerment is an adaptive work. There is no right formulas. There's no prescriptions. You have to understand the reality of the people that you are trying to help. And I think with this notion of adaptive work, we need to continue to learn from each other, learn from the experiences, and really adjust as we go. I appreciate the comment from the NGO. Perhaps we really need to look inside and see how we can make some improvement and adjustments. We need to be open to the private sector and see how we can forge partnerships where we have win-win situations. And we really need to be adherent to the principles of empowering the poor. I like what you said, Dr. Amjad, that the poor are poor because they were not empowered. Last time I checked, they all have 10 fingers, 1 face, 2 eyes, 1 nose, everybody. Those who are sitting in making $2 a day or making $2 million a day. They are the same people. If they get the same access to the empowerment and opportunities. So thank you very much, all of you, and thanks for the panelists, and thank you for staying so late with us.